Welcome to the Morning Mist, 99 above and beyond schizophrenia. So right now I want to make this video talking about something that I touched on a little while ago, but I want to redo that video. I want to just add a bit more insight, a little bit more thought to some of the things I was saying, because it's really a larger topic. The topic of like racism and hate it's complex and also very simple. I think the only thing that makes it complex is just, you know, human ignorance and just our own stubbornness, right? But I had an experience at work, and it kind of reminded me of another experience I had, which kind of led me to making this video because of how I got through that one experience. I was at work, and a lady, I think she's one of the owners, came through, and I was in this room doing some work, and she comes in and she's greeting everybody. Hi, how you doing? Hi, you know, all the workers. I was the only black guy on site. She comes into the room I was working, and there's two of them, her and I don't know who the other lady was, but it's two of them, and they looked at me, and then they're just nothing. Just keep on looking around, walking around, and they took off. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I was saying hi to everybody at our, you know, I heard them, people talking throughout the place as they came closer and closer, right? So, okay, I thought, okay, that was weird. So anyways, I didn't really think much of it beyond that, and then until it was a couple days ago, she came in again, and this time there's a new worker with us. He was outside the door, outside the room that I was working in, and she said hi to him. How you doing? And you know, we'll talk and whatnot. And then she comes in the room, and I was there on the ladder, and looks at me and nothing. Just looks around and just keep walking. So I thought, okay, well, that's interesting. So maybe there's something to that. So anyway, I didn't really care much. I'm not there to be I'm not there for niceties. I'm not there for any of that. I don't get paid regardless if you say hi to me, regardless if you like me, regardless of whatever the heck. I don't get paid for that. I get paid for showing up and doing my work. So I didn't really care much beyond that. But it reminded me of a situation with going to school on the train. This was a different situation because I was going there with a buddy. A buddy was white. Not that these people here were white. They weren't. But my buddy was white, and you know, we're going to school on the train, and you sit on one's seats. The seats are facing opposite each other. You sit there. I'm sitting in front of him, and you know, people would come on the train. They would sit all over the place. They'll sit next to him. Nobody would sit beside me. And so this happened a few times before my buddy, he texted me one time. He was sitting, you know, right across from me, but he sent me a text. He's like, hey, there's only two seats. There are only two seats on this whole cart that's empty, and it's one beside you and the other black guy that's down a few rows back. And I said, yeah, I know. I said, yeah, I know. And he's like, I don't know. After we got off the train, he was talking about it, and he's like, yeah, I don't know what's wrong with people, man. Like, it's like, you're such a good dude. I'm like, yeah, I don't know either. I'm sure the other black dude is a good dude too. He's just going to school like everybody else. It's not like we look threatening or anything like that. We're just got our school bags, and I had my bag on my lap because, you know, somebody can sit rather than sit there and put my bag there like some people do. But you know, so it was interesting because I wasn't the one who brought it up. My buddy is the one who acknowledged that, and I don't like to bring things like that up because, you know, one time you might see something and somebody else might say, oh, maybe it's this and maybe it's that, and you know, so when he brought it up, it's like, okay, I'm not the only one that's seeing that, right? So the thing about that though is it can make you feel like you're less than dirt, right? It makes you feel like you're lower than dirt. You're, you know, because you feel like people despise you for no reason simply because of the color of your skin. And you feel like you're despised, you're hated, and what comes with that, you start to fall into this dark place, and you want to meet that type of energy with a similar energy. You start to resent, you start to just, I don't care, just, you know, F them and whatever it is, right? And you start to go into this darkness, right? And it sucks you in, because you just realizing people don't even see you as human. And then, you know, but what, and I was feeling that. I was feeling like, just like a sadness, right? Like it hurt. I'm not gonna lie, you know, that hurt. That was hurting me. But what caught me was the fact that I've been through that with schizophrenia, where you feel like everybody hates you for no reason. And so because of that, and getting through that by recognizing that one with hatred, and me responding to hatred with hatred, was what that produces was the weakest person there was in the world was me, right? Because I felt everybody hated me. The whole world was in me and reading my thoughts and laughing at me and so forth. So I started to hate these people, everyone, my family included. And so once I realized that if they loved me, I would have loved them, but because they hate me, I hated them. I am not in control, but I want to be in control. So what I had to do was, I have to be, like the Bible verse says, do unto others as you like them to do unto you. So that's what I chose to do. I chose to see people how I'd like them to see me. I chose to treat people how I like them to treat me. So instead of meeting that a hatred with resentment and more hatred, I chose to meet it with love, right? And so I end up not, when I end up moving towards people rather than moving away from people, right? I learned to start to embrace my mom. I started to, when I hear somebody say something, like laugh at some of the chaos that was going in here, I started to say good things to them, and instead of saying bad things to them and wish bad things on them, I started to think the opposite and say hello to them if it was a stranger, stuff like that, greet them and so forth, with just a different energy, in order to break through that. And eventually I broke through that, and by consistently pushing up against that energy with something of a different polarity, I guess, I was able to pierce through until I shattered that delusion. And what I was standing before was the truth, was that nothing of the sorts was happening, but it was all a projection of what's going on in my mind. So having come through that, and coming up on top of it, and going back to that train situation, I realized while I was falling was that, hey, you came from a place where you felt you were hated by the whole world, and this is just a train full of a few people, and what the heck does that got to do with me? You know what I mean? If you can get through that, what the heck is this? How the hell are you even getting touched by this? So I was able to catch myself and realize that doesn't really matter. People are going to think what they want to think. They're going to do what they want to do, but that shouldn't change my response in that, because now I'm once again going back to a position of being weak and controlled by the energy of other people, right? So it's no longer me that's living. It's no longer me that's acting in this world. It's that the response of what this negative energy coming from people is creating within me. So that's not how I want to be. So I had to come back to the surface and start to look at people again as other, as human beings, and to be valued and to be loved and respected and so forth, and not to just judge them based on anything that they're putting forth. I had to put forth my own energy. So that's kind of how I broke through that and start to just put it off as, as people they're just I realized it wasn't really hatred. It's more people are afraid. People look at you and they're afraid of you simply because of whatever they see on TV, and I guess with the whole rap music, and we put these negative image out there, but still, there are always groups in every culture that have a negative stereotype, that put this negative image out there, and people don't really necessarily group them together. With some they do, but still you still judge these people based on their individual their individuality, right? And it wasn't every day this happened or everybody was like that. There were some good days when people would come and they sit down and it was good and whatnot, but it was enough that even my buddy noticed it, and it became a running joke between the two of us to see how it's gonna go, right? But that's, you know, and I it led me to think about how some of these kids that, you know, shooting up schools and stuff and how they get there, and you know, they're being pushed around by people who want to feel good about themselves, and they don't understand the darkness and the dark place that these kids fall into, and they have nothing to hold them sometimes, and then that's how they respond, because these kids just want to be loved, they just want to be accepted, they just want to feel like they belong, they just want to be you know, just want to live and be good with people, and that's how they treated them. And it's not like I'm justifying that in any capacity, it's just that what I'm saying is I understand where they fall to and how it happens, because I found myself falling into that same darkness, and that's what happens sometimes. You know, I used to listen to some rap songs back in the day, and you hear some of these guys talk about how the negative perception of society on them caused them to become what they are, you know. And to me, there's no excuse for that. That's the definition of weakness and cowardice, in my opinion, because I know, like I said, I've been there, and it's just something that you just learn to react with and move with, and it's like you just go with the flow of the energy coming at you, not resisting, not to push against it with something greater to transcend it and to break through. And so to me, it's not, I understand how they got that mindset, because I was going there myself, but I don't think becoming that thing is anything to brag about. In fact, it's something to be ashamed of, because you don't determine your own destiny anymore, somebody else does, because the way that they look at you and you react to that. So I don't see anything positive or anything to brag about. You know, you're just moving with whatever comes. So, but that's just how that hatred, that negative image, and how people respond to people, treat people based on those things, how it can affect people. Like it can cast people into a place, and society feels the recoil of that, right? So we really got to think about how we treat people and how we look at people and judge people, and try to really look at people as human beings. And even with schizophrenia, you know, they have this negative image of schizophrenia, and you just mentioned you have schizophrenia, and sometimes people would just want to nothing to do with you, because they're afraid, because of the image that's portrayed about people with schizophrenia. Even though people with schizophrenia are less likely to hurt you than you are to hurt them, they're more afraid of you, right? Like, I know I said I've been to a place where I want to hurt everybody, but you know how many years it took for me to get there, right? It took a long time, and even then I still didn't do it. I went to want to hurt myself. And that's the other thing, like, people with schizophrenia are more likely to hurt themselves than to hurt you. But it's not that everybody in every instance would not hurt you. It's, you know, that's just because we are human beings, right? And people, there's humans from every religion, every nationality, every culture, every ethnic group, whatever it is. There are always people that will hurt you. And so it makes sense why there are some people with schizophrenia who will still hurt you, because, you know, there's some people who have cancer that would hurt you. You know what I mean? There's some people who have whatever it is, I'll still hurt you. You know, so it's not, schizophrenia itself doesn't mean someone is going to hurt you. It's just, it's the heart. It's always the heart. It's always how people respond to what's inside their heart. But we get so caught up on the labels and the imaging that we take from media and our own minds, because we tend to want to believe every damn thought that comes to our heads and think that that's truth. That's not the most deceiving thing that you have to be concerned about It's not what's out there. It's not necessarily the media. It's not necessarily the politicians. It's not necessarily you know, all the other things. It's your own heart. That's the most deceptive thing, because whatever comes, everything comes from outside and it comes in, and you've got to accept it. You've got to give meaning to it. You've got to take it in, and you have to listen to it and allow you to act. So it's your own heart that deceives you. It's your own heart that kind of controls whether you go this way or that way, and people believe everything that comes into their minds like it's truth, it's the gospel, and then they run with that, and then, you know, they start to believe these nonsense, these things that aren't even true, and then allow that to make them act. And sometimes people just act on instinct. There's a lady on the train who came in, and she was coming up from behind, and she looked to go sit, and she saw I was a black dude, and she kept going straight, and then she kind of swung around. I think she didn't really think about what she did, because I was, you know, I was seeing her, and out the corner of my eye, she would look up and she'd look down, she had her phone out and look at it, and then she's kind of, I think she's like, crap, you know, like she acted instinctively, not thoughtfully, right? It was just, you know. And other people would come on the train, and people would do the same thing. They'll come, they'll look, and oop, they'll turn around, right? And she would just like, I think she realized, man, like, why did I do that? And she felt bad for me, because it was happening, and people were seeing this. And I was like, you know, like, you feel like a piece of garbage in that situation. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it hurt. But I had to just kind of, you know, come through that, swim through that. And eventually she just kind of put her phone down and just kind of walked up and just sat down. And, you know, I was gonna say something about it, like, you know, something just like, oh, you finally decided I wasn't gonna bite you, or something like that, something silly like that, because at some point I thought it was so stupid. You know, 'cause I had to come through all that, and the amount of people that did that, I thought this was stupid. I thought this was dumb, right? Imagine you a grown freaking person so afraid of a freaking black dude who's sitting on a train with a school bag on, going to freaking school, and you're so terrified. I thought that was stupid. And, you know, why am I getting offended? I'm not the problem. You're the freaking problem. You know, so that's kind of how I started to come through that. And eventually I got to the point where, all right, nobody's sitting, I'll put my freaking bag down and just enjoy the seat by myself. You know what I mean? Like, so that's kind of how I kind of get out of my own head and start to look at the situation through a more clear lens, rather than this hurt lens, as if I'm the freaking problem, or as if everyone's perception of me is true, or that I ought to be offended by it. It's like, nah, you ought to be offended how you're thinking, you know. So that experience with going through schizophrenia kind of allowed me to come back to the surface and to be able to regain control of my thoughts and my emotions and give kind of clarity to that. But, you know, a lot of times people are, especially like this train was like in the morning, right? People are going to school, they're college students, university students, business people, and a lot of times, especially now, a lot of these it's a lot of these college students, these university students going on campuses talking about racism and how, you know, they're for diversity and equality and all this stuff, and yet in the moment of practicing what they preach, sometimes that's just how the response is, you know. So there's just it's like, it seems complex, but it's really a simple thing. And I just really think if we can like look at people like how we'd want to be treated, whether that person says I have schizophrenia or any other kind of mental illness and whatnot. You know, you see like cancer, people are, oh, they're all over that kind of stuff, and no one's going to judge you as a, you know, this kind of person. But when it comes to stuff like schizophrenia and mental illnesses, people just want to automatically assume the worst. If you see somebody who like going through that, they are a terrified person. With schizophrenia, you pity them because they're so afraid of you. They're so terrified. And it's like, people are now more, and it just shows the cowardice in us as you know, the society, who are, you're terrified of people who are terrified of you. You know what I mean? It's kind of like we're not getting something here. But it's the image and the media that puts this idea out there to sell the worst stories, and people buy that and apply that to everybody, and then totally misrepresent the truth. And it's the same thing with, you know, what I went through, and what I'm sure other black males, and it's mostly males, because I saw the women on the train, the girls, they have no problem. So that's why I think it's not necessarily simply because of my skin color, but it's because of the image people have, and it's due to fear, right, which causes this, right? So, but it creates, this is it's another way to create monsters, right? It's another way to create more monsters and more hate, and you don't do any society any favors, yourself any favors. And I think we have to judge people based on who they are, who they show us to be, and really and to really allow that to speak to us. But anyway, that's just a little story I have, and I know there's more about the racial stuff and schizophrenia, you know, throughout the history and so forth. But I just want to touch on this aspect of it, and that's maybe some other stuff for another time. But you know, anyway, you guys have a good day. It's the afternoon here, and I'm out in the woods someplace here looking over my shoulders, you know, so kind of might sneak up on me. But yeah, you guys take it easy. I'll see you next time.